All right, I figured we had to do some UFC stuff this week. Paul Fontaine is here with me. We're going to talk UFC 300. If you haven't heard, Paul joined me to do a quick update on In the Clinch, and In Clinch is on hiatus. So because of that, I decided if we don't have In the Clinch, we do have to at least preview UFC 300. Let me start with this, Paul, because
Mhm.
we just got through WrestleMania 40, and there was so much hype for WrestleMania 40 with The Rock coming back.
Mhm.
And TKO is sort of selling the idea of these two giant events a week apart. I don't feel the same fervor and hype for UFC 300. Why is that?
I don't know. Yeah, and you know what the funny thing is now that you mentioned that, I don't recall seeing anything on WrestleMania promoting UFC 300, which really surprised me. Now it's possible that they did in the States because on if you're watching on the Peacock, you probably had commercials, and I don't have that. So it is possible that they did, but I don't remember seeing it. But yeah, for me, like it's the card is awesome, but it lacks that marquee main event that gets everyone super excited. So for me, like, yeah, I mean, it's not even in the universe of WrestleMania 40, it's more like probably just like an average WWE pay per view in terms of my excitement for it. Probably less than an average AEW pay per view, to be honest with you.
All right. So I very much remember UFC 100. I
Hmm.
very much remember how excited I was for UFC 100.
Hmm.
UFC 200, there was a lot of like chaos involved in
Yeah.
putting that show together. So yeah, obviously Brock Lesnar's involved in both of those shows, and he's not involved in this one. But is the reason why this show isn't promoted in that same way? I mean, you said there's not that one marquee fight, but is it also because there's really no onus on UFC to get that outside celebrity or get that person who, Ronda Rousey, for
Mhm.
instance, I think people were rumoring like, oh, it'd be crazy if she came back for UFC 300. Like, there's no real impetus for them because of how their business works.
I think that's a big part of it. I also think that this regime is not as into the traditions as the old one was. So, like how we used to always have a Memorial Day weekend
Mhm.
pay per view. They take the week off. International Fight Week is always the week surrounding Independence Day, and this year it's like a week earlier. They just don't care. It's whatever works for them is going to work for them. And yeah, because the pay per view money is guaranteed, they're not in like they're still going to promote the card and they got tickets to sell. So, like they're going to try to put together a good card.
And I
But
imagine the gate is gonna break all kinds of records as
yeah,
well because
yeah,
of how
yeah.
expensive the prices are.
I think the last one broke a record for like a bantamweight title fight, for a gate, or actually it was a non-Connor gate, I think.
Mhm.
And so this one will break that, and it's another non-Connor gate. So they're gonna do huge money for this, and they got a Connor fight coming. So believe that'll probably be announced this weekend.
Pretty smart.
Conor McGregor, Michael Chandler. It's going to be a big show. I thought like they've been doing a really good job of marketing this show, but they're marketing it to people that are already watching.
Mhm.
So the problem is that like I've seen a few people that are casual fans that probably heard about UFC 300, but they don't really know much about the card, and they're like, "How come this isn't being promoted?" And the funny thing is, I'm like, I thought they've been promoting it really well, and then it dawned on me, well, that's because it's on the shows I'm already
Yeah,
watching.
you're watching those shows already. Now there is this synergy between WWE and
Mhm.
UFC. We saw, Michael Chandler on Raw cut a promo. The Rock himself is involved because he is the shoe distributor for the UFC. But
Mhm.
I just figured now, he was heavy into the wrestling thing, but being on the board of TKO means that he's not only on the board for WWE, but he's also on the board for UFC. I figured they would utilize him in some way, and maybe they still will because there's still a couple days before the show. But at least I thought, okay, The Rock will somewhat be involved. He'll do a video promo for them or something, and we haven't seen it yet.
I mean, if he does anything, I mean, I could see him promoting or presenting the BMF title. He did that before once with Masvidal and Diaz, so he could do that again here. I expect we're going to see a lot of WWE people in the crowd. I would think that probably on SmackDown they'll promote UFC 300, and that'll be a huge audience. So, but maybe not. Like they didn't promote it on Raw, and that was a massive audience. So yeah, it's very odd that they're not, because it seems to me like this would be the perfect weekend, and given that they've already had a bunch of crossover, Rock again, it's in his best interests to promote. He's on the board. He just got that super nice dividend check, for all the work he did promoting WrestleMania. So yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, UFC does all their best promotion like pretty much starting now. So, we're recording this Friday or Thursday afternoon, my time, but well, I guess it's still afternoon your time. So I mean, from now till Saturday, like that's when their hard promotion kicks in. So it'll be, I'm sure ESPN will be all over it, and and all the celebrities will start coming in. It's in Vegas, so there'll be a lot of big names there.
To me, the most it's not the most interesting. It's not the fight that I'm most excited about. But the fight that I'm most interested in, not only seeing the result, but really seeing what this person looks like is Kayla Harrison and Holly Holm. It is on the prelim. So,
Mhm.
I mean, talk about a fight that PFL would have died to be in the main event on their show. Uh, what have we heard about Kayla and the weight cut and her first UFC fight? Like, I think it should be maybe even a bigger deal than it is being on the prelims. I don't know. What are you thinking about this?
Well, first of all, with the weight, I understand she was at 150 pounds like a month ago. So I don't think that's going to be an issue at all. I'm surprised by that, to be honest with you, but that's what I heard. So it is possible, that that's not going to be an issue at all. And in terms of, I think the reason they're putting it on the prelims is because they want to maximize the eyeballs. The prelims have been doing crazy numbers on ESPN
This will
lately.
probably do the best number of the year.
I would think so, yeah. I mean, we're talking probably 1.5 million viewers, probably like a zero point 0.6 in the demo, and that's only on ESPN, and then we got, a lot of people watch on ESPN Plus as well, because if you do that, then you don't even have to change the channel, you just watch the pay-per-view after. So to me, like it does make sense to put her on the pre-show, because I don't think Kayla Harrison is selling any pay-per-views.
Mm-hmm.
But you may get those curiosity eyeballs, and Holly Holm is a big star. And one of the things with UFC is they always tend to put they have marketable women with big names, and when they put them on the prelims, they do really big numbers. And this goes back Misha Tate, Paige Van Zant, I think there's what's her name? Michelle Watterson.
Mm-hmm.
So this could be another case of that. And Holly Holm is a big name, and honestly still a contender. Like that's a really weak division. Really the winner of this fight probably is going to get a title shot right away. This could be like a Brock Lesnar situation where Kayla Harrison comes in, does one fight, and then it's going right for the title. Raquel Pennington is a very beatable champion. So yeah, I was looking at the card as well, and like kind of prepping for us to do the show, and that's the one to me that kind of stands out in terms of the one I'm most interested in. I'm also interested in Bo Nickel, who we'll talk about in a little while, and then and just up and down the card. I mean, there's a bunch of big fights, but this one stands out. And you're right. Like if PFL was doing a pay-per-view and they had access to Holly Holm, this would be the main event.
Yeah,
Like, no
absolutely.
question. But again, nobody would buy it. So,
Well, I mean, they would buy it if it was a UFC pay-per-view.
oh yeah,
Not a
but
PFL pay-per-view.
yeah, like if this was the headline card fight of the card, I don't think it would do any less buys. I'm not sure it would do any more buys, but UFC doesn't really operate like that. Like if it was a title fight, yeah, maybe it would be the main event. But they always, if there's a title fight, it's the main event. Like they always go title over big name, always.
The opener, as far as I can tell, on the early prelim card is
Yeah,
Davison Figueiredo and Cody Garbrandt.
yeah.
What
This
is the reason for that?
well, the reason is, so I mean, it's a super deep card. So I think the point is you've got two former champions, and they're in the first match. So
Yeah, you
man, what a
wanna
deep card this
open
is.
the early
Yeah.
prelims strong, I guess?
And I do think they're also they've been promoting that these matches are on Fight Pass. I at least that's what I'm seeing because it's in Canada. I don't know if it's the same in the US,
ESPN Plus and ESPN.
but not Fight Pass.
I don't it doesn't say Fight Pass on
Okay, okay.
what
So
I'm
it may
watching.
be that I'm seeing the Canadian marketing, but I know that they're trying to sell people to buy Fight Pass because the only way you can see these fights is if you have Fight Pass in Canada. So like if you want to see Cody Garbrandt and Davison Figueiredo, which is a pretty great fight, you got to have Fight Pass. And believe it or not, like the numbers for Fight Pass, like they're continuing to climb. I don't understand why. Because they don't have Fight Pass cards. They don't even have exclusive prelims there. They have all these regional shows that I don't think anybody watches, but I guess maybe people are buying for the archive. I don't know.
But
Or
doesn't, ESPN Plus also have the archive?
I don't know.
They may have some stuff. They may
Yeah,
not have all
yeah,
of
I
it.
don't know. But yeah, so I mean, I think that's it. Like, I think it's more of like the point of man, this card is so deep that this is the first because there's probably 3 or 4 fights that I would put, below this if you want to talk about marquee value. Jalen Turner and Renato Moicano, Sadiq Youssef and Diego Lopez. Those ones kind of stand out to me. I mean, this really, if this was on the main card, it wouldn't be out of place. So, or the featured prelim, you know.
I I mean, just because of sort of the history,
Mhm,
of Jim Miller, I would have liked to see him a little bit higher up on the
mhm.
card. I don't know if they could have put this fight on the main card, but just for that story of him, that's it's a fantastic story, of him being on this show at 40 years old. I like that kind of stuff probably more than most people, but I saw that as like, oh, I wonder why they didn't try and put this at least on the prelims rather than the early prelims. But again, maybe it's also to go, hey,
Yeah.
you got to come early if you want to see Jim Miller, and we're going to tell this story, and you got to check in as soon as you can.
I think so. And the funny thing is he like you talk about him being 40. He's on quite the roll. Like he's won 5 of his last 6 fights, all by finish. If he beats Bobby Green, he's probably gonna be ranked. And the way he's talking, like he's probably kind of joking, but like he's like, you know what? Give me a spot on UFC 400. Like he's been talking about 300 now for like 4 years, and everybody's been pushing for it. They want him to be on 300 and that. And then the end of last year, I think it was like November or something, he gets a win, and you're like, okay, great. He's gonna be on 300. He's gonna be coming off a win, and then he books a fight in January. Or actually, sorry, it was June of last year, so it was a little bit later. But he books a fight in January, and I'm like, what are they doing? Like he might get hurt. He might not be able to make 300. And he's like, Dana announced before that fight, he's on 300 no matter what. Like unless he breaks an arm or something.
Yeah.
So that dude's an OG, and man, like he's gonna get like one of the biggest reactions on the show, I think, depending on how many people are in the building. And Vegas is a notoriously late arriving crowd, so that again, I kind of like, I feel like you do as well. Like I'd at least like to see this on the main prelims
Yeah.
at the very least. But if you put it on the card, but I mean, man, you look at this main card, and I don't know what you take off. A lot of people would say Bo Nickel, but there's a reason why
Nah,
there's a reason they want him on the main card.
I think he's the perfect guy to open the show.
Oh yeah, no, there is, but that's the main complaint I see is people. Well, why are you putting Bo Nickel on the main card? It's like you don't get it.
Speaking of Jim Miller, I
Yeah,
mean, since about gosh, he's been around for so long. Since the early 2010s, he's been super streaky. He'll like win
yeah,
3, then he'll like lose 2, then he'll win 3, and then he'll lose 4. And he has had some ups and downs, of late, but since October of 2011, like you said, he's won 5 out of his last 6. And I'm going to guess that it's also in part because of the competition. He's not facing the top contenders of the division, but still, I don't know. Can you shoehorn him in some way of a booking to give him? I mean, you can't gift title fights, but how far away is he from actually getting a legitimate big fight?
you know what the problem is that division is so like stacked. I mean, you look at like we've got Charles Oliveira and Arman Sarukian fighting on this card in that division. We've got, like that division has, Max Holloway is kind of flirts with being in that division. Justin Gaethje, Conor, is going to be either there or welterweight, probably welterweight. I mean, there's so many big names. I think the best possible thing for Miller might be, if you put him in against somebody like kind of a middle, maybe like a lower, because he's going to be ranked. So maybe if you put him in something in the back half of the top 15 and then he gets a win there, you might be able to market like a BMF fight, with him. And that would be perfect. Like Jim Miller and Justin Gaethje for the BMF title. Like, to me, that could headline a pay-per-view. But I think like for him, I mean, he'd have to beat, probably two guys in the top 10 and one of those being in the top 5 to get a title shot. And I'm just not sure he can actually do that.
Yeah.
But if he did, like, he's going to vault ahead of a lot of ranked guys, like without names, especially, given the story and given, how old, how old he is. And, like this is his last chance and all that. I'm just pulling up the rankings. Like, yeah, I mean, you got Dustin Poirier, Matthias Gamrot, Michael Chandler, Beneil Dariush. I would probably go like Jim Miller and maybe like Dan Hooker, for like the next fight. And then if he happens to win that, then you stick him in against, like maybe a Michael Chandler, coming off the Conor fight. And that's a big fight. And, if he beats Michael Chandler, yeah, he gets a title shot off of that for sure. But I just don't think I don't think he would. But you never know. Like he's got such a great ground game, and that doesn't go away with age. The power sometimes does, especially with the lighter weight fighters. But the submission skills, like and he looks better now than he did when he was 30. Like it's crazy. And he's got some names in there. Gabriel Benitez is not nobody, and he's got Donald Cerrone, that he beat in that streak. So there's some names there. I'm pulling for that guy, but I mean, he could easily get knocked out by Bobby Green, and then
great story. Yeah, it's a great story, and then we'll see what happens.
This is a fight they've tried to make like 3 times, and we're finally getting it. So that's another one for us longtime fans that follow this sport, like as closely as I do. To finally see these two go at it is pretty cool.
I am going to be out of town on Saturday, so I am not going to be doing Wrestling Observer Radio with Dave and Ryan Frederick, and I'm probably not even going to be able to watch at least the pay-per-view portion of this show. So I didn't, I still even haven't watched the countdown. You know how I like watching the countdown because I find that to be so fun to see what's going on in these guys' lives before the fight. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be as dialed in as I have for all of the UFC shows so far this year, but let's go through the best bets. You use this ROI system, and give me like your 3 best as far as what you may be putting some money on.
Yeah, and if for those that are watching or listening that are in our Discord, Ryan and I have been posting our picks in the show thread every week. So we'll do like a 5-fight parlay. And my 5-fight parlay has been getting super close. So if you want to play it safe and just bet straight money on each fight, you probably make a decent profit if you took the picks I've been doing lately. And I base those on the RFI. So my first one is Aljamain Sterling. He's got an ROI of 91.2. Former bantamweight champion, moving up to featherweight. He's fighting Calvin Kattar, which is a tough opponent, obviously, but he should win. I mean, this is, I think, a fight that he's being kind of put in that he should win. The only loss he's had is against Sean O'Malley, and that was the title fight since what are we looking back here?
The Boston show, whenever that was.
Yeah,
last year sometime.
Yeah, no, long. Yeah, that's the last fight. But before that, it's 2017. So he's only had one loss in the last 6.5 years. It was December 2017. So I think he's pretty safe bet. He's it doesn't pay great, so you might want to throw this one on a parlay. But he's they're looking to get him. It's -140, so it's not bad odds at all. So he's the first one. The second one is Yuri Prochazka. Again, another former champion, former light heavyweight champion, and he's back. He's fighting Alexander Rakic. This one should be a banger. And I would also maybe throw a little prop bet on this one, not going too long, so maybe like under 1.5 rounds. Prochaska is, I'm just pulling up the odds here. He's actually a slight underdog, plus 110. And I remember this. He, for some reason, he always wins when he's an underdog. So, you know, like when he's a favorite, he loses, but he always wins as an underdog. He's got one of the best ROIs of all the guys I've tracked at 84.8%. And then my third is Charles Oliveira at 67.5. He's facing Arman Sarukian. Tough fight for him, but Oliveira, again, another former champion. He is a plus 185 underdog, so it's paying really well. Both these guys have won 4 of their last 5. I just think the championship experience is going to get him ahead, and he usually beats the guys that are ranked beneath him. It's just when he gets up against, like, you know, Islam Makhachev is like two of his losses, him and Khabib. So, yeah, Oliveira, Yuri Prochazka, and Aljamain Sterling are my 3 best bets. And in the Discord, I'll post 5 later, along with some props. So that'll be, I'll post those probably Saturday morning. But these are the guys I'm going to bet on for sure.
Max Holloway, one of my favorite fighters to watch. He faces Justin Gaethje. And you have to go back to, I think it's like 2019, since he lost to someone other than Alexander Volkanovski.
Yep.
Where do you think he is in his career at this point?
It's tough to say because he's had so many wars. I mean, it's hard to believe he's only 32. I remember him. I mean, he's one of my favorite fighters as well. The first time I really took notice of him was when he fought Andre Touchy-Feely. That was 10 years ago. And that was a great fight. And, he won by submission, and they were both kind of in the same position at that time. And Feely's still around, but, he kind of wins one, loses one and everything. He had that fight with Conor McGregor. That was actually before that, where he lost by decision. And that was like one of the only fights that Conor even went the distance in UFC in the early part of his career. But, and then he went on that super long win streak, and lost to Poirier, and then he lost 3 times to Volkanovski. But he's coming off wins over Arnold Allen, who's a top contender, and the Korean Zombie. But he is moving up to lightweight, and that could be a trouble, because the only other time he's done that, he lost. Although that was short notice, and this one, they booked this a long time ago. I think 155 is a better weight for him. I mean, you look at his body, he's a really big 145 pounder. I don't know how he makes it. I've met Max Holloway. Dude towers over me, and he doesn't look skinny like in real life. So I don't know how this dude makes 145, but he does. And he's fighting Justin Gaethje, who hits harder as anyone in his weight class, and probably as hard as anyone at 170. So this is going to be, it's gonna, if it doesn't end early, he's gonna take a lot of damage. And this is what worries me with him. Is he is one of these guys, like kind of like a Diego Sanchez, that just probably takes too much damage for his own good, and at some point it's going to catch up to him. Or Tony Ferguson, another one. But we've yet to see that decline. So, and if he loses to Gaethje, I mean, it's not like you can say he's washed up or anything.
Yeah.
I've always had him on my list of like my top 5 fighters that, just my favorite fighters to watch. Just a great person. But Gaethje's another one, that is never has a bad fight. This one, I mean, if this doesn't win fight of the night, I'll be shocked. But there's a few other ones in here that could. So I'm really looking forward to this one. But again, I don't know where we're at. I put it this way, I'd say it's less likely than more likely that Holloway ever wins a title again. If maybe that's a simple answer to your question, is he's probably on the backside of his career.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very easy to watch him and go, okay, he's not at his peak, he's not in his prime. But we've also seen scenarios in which, guys who you may think are, maybe not in the title picture anymore, all of a sudden they get some wins and they make some changes, whether it's in their training or in their lifestyle, and then they're kind of back. And that's what I hope for him is
Charles Oliveira.
Charles Oliveira is one of them.
Yeah, Rafael Dos Anjos.
I just hope for because I think Max, I think he's got marketable skills.
Mhm.
I think he's very likable. He sort of reminds you a little bit of how the old school guys back when the UFC was becoming popular, how they kind of handled themselves.
Mhm.
Uh, the blessed nickname, I love that. And so I've always just been a fan of how he's handled himself. And when you see guys who were, once great and then they're all of a sudden not great anymore, it's kind of hard because this sport is brutal and unforgiving. And it's just he is one that I hope kind of, can find a second life in this sport.
I gotta say, I really, really love this BMF title, and I don't know how often they're going to use it. Every time they do it, they kind of hint that okay, this is the last time we're going to see it. But I think it's a great idea, and you got these fighters from like about 145 to 170 that just these OG gangster kind of type fighters, and there's a lot of them. That there's so many matchups that I would love to see, and this BMF title kind of gives you a reason to do it. I mean, I would love to see Holloway and Chandler. I'd love to see Connor and McGregor and see if they actually had a division, with rankings of the BMF
I
title.
was I was thinking about that too.
I think it would be like the best division in MMA. It's almost like the New Japan never open weight title.
Yeah,
Like
but do you lose points for takedowns? Like, what's going on
I
here?
don't know. I don't think that matters. I mean, we saw a little bit of that in I think it might have been Masvidal Diaz, but most of the time these guys just go nuts. And like Poirier and Gaethje, they seem to fight like there's like Poirier, Gaethje, and Chandler. Like two of the three of them fight every year at MSG. And it's like yeah. So I mean, the one for me, what I would really love to see from Max Holloway, honestly, more than a title, I would love to see him get that rematch with Connor at some point.
Mhm.
Just that big money fight, where he can just, make money and then go buy an island in Hawaii and retire.
It's the second time you've mentioned Connor, and we're gonna get to
Yeah.
Connor here, at
Yeah.
the end of this show. All right. There is a pretty historic fight, on the semi-main, the UFC Women's Strawweight Championship, Zhang Weili and Yan, and I don't know how to pronounce her
I think it's Xiaonan.
Jiaonan. That
Yeah.
sounds good. First time two Chinese-born athletes will meet for a title in
Yeah.
the organization. I think that is very interesting, but also at the same time, when you uh, from a marketability standpoint, it seems like putting it in the semi-main is probably the right move, but uh, not that I know enough about the challenger here to even make it like the historic fight that it actually is.
Well, I mean, she's definitely earned the title shot. She's got two wins, she's got two wins in a row over Mackenzie Dern and Jessica Andrade, both huge names. She finished Jessica Andrade, who is one of the, she's like probably the female version of Max Holloway. Like she's been around forever. She's competed in like three different divisions, and I think she has the UFC record for most wins by a woman. So her winning that definitely earned her this title shot. They do have like common opponent in Carla Esparza that they've both recently fought, and she lost to Carla, and Zhang Weili won. So I do believe Zhang Weili is going to be favored in this fight. Yeah, she's really actually a heavy favorite, almost over 4-1 favorite. But I don't think you can count either one of these two out because Zhang Weili has shown her defense isn't great. So, I mean, she's probably the best striker in the division in terms of her offensive striking. But I would say for her defense, she's shown a propensity to get hit. And she's been beaten twice by Rose Namajunas. Two of her three career losses were to Rose. So I don't think I think these odds are bad, honestly. And I'm going to be throwing money on the challenger in this one, even though, if the money was heads up odds, I would pick Zhang Weili, but because it's so weighted in her favor, I'm going to go with the underdog. But yeah, it's definitely a marketable fight. And I mean, I think if this was even, like if they were doing a show in China, and obviously this would headline and it would probably do great numbers, or if they went to Singapore or something like that. But being in the co-main here, I think it's pretty big, and they may get a lot of people buying the fight over there, and I'm sure that's the goal.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's really cool for one.
Yeah, and
And
it's gonna be a great fight. It's
I
gonna be
do
a
hope
great
the
fight.
business, I do hope that it gains some sort of
Yeah.
international recognition. All right, so the main event is Alex Pajea defending the light heavyweight championship, which has been sort of a cursed belt of late,
Yeah.
uh, against Jamal Hill, who won the belt in a unanimous decision over Glover Teixeira, and then tore his Achilles tendon playing basketball.
Mhm.
And then his first fight back from the Achilles tear is a championship fight against a badass kickboxer. I don't know, man. That sounds pretty dangerous to me. The movement from an Achilles tear seems it seems tough to be put in right smack dab in the middle of the main event of UFC 300 coming off of this injury.
To me, this feels like a horrendous mismatch. And really, even when Jamal Hill won the title over Glover Teixeira, like, I mean, he beat a really old Glover Teixeira, and it was a guy that had some great fights and really was like defying the laws of aging. And this kind of is just where it caught up, and it wasn't a great fight. And he eked out a decision. Yeah, I remember that was the week I was in Disney World, actually, and I remember kind of watching this fight, scrambling to watch the fight before I did the show with Ryan, and I almost fell asleep watching it. Like, it was a boring fight. And you just, like, he looked like the guy that, okay, next guy that gets a shot at Jamal Hill is going to be the light heavyweight champion. And then it turns out, he gets injured, and then they do, Pereira ends up winning the vacant title. I just think this is just, I I want to say a showcase fight for Pereira. Odds are pretty close, honestly. But yeah, I don't know. I think he's kind of in over his head a little bit.
Dave Meltzer's phone ringing just came.
Yeah, it's my work phone. It'll go to voicemail right away. I should have muted it. Sorry. I put a quarter in the jar. $5, I guess it is, right?
Bo Nickel, we mentioned him, and this is a good showcase for him. Are you as high on Bo as everyone else seems to be?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, you can almost guarantee he's a future champion. Cody Brundage has a record of 10-5, and at first glance you would look and say, you know what, he's this is a pushover, and maybe it is, but he's you can't take this guy lightly. He's a finisher, and this fight is going to be quick. It's I would almost guarantee this fight's going to end in the first round. It's probably going to be Bo Nickel winning, but Cody Brundage could beat him. So Nickel's got the best training in everything, and they're, UFC is going to hype this thing up or whatever. I think, like, he's just on a collision course with whoever the middleweight champion is going to be. I mean, the dream match would have been Adesanya. But obviously, he's gone now, although he could come back. But whoever is going to be the middleweight champion when Nickel's ready, which I would say is probably about 15 months from now. He's probably needs about 3 more wins, and then and I think he's going to be like, he's just got everything. He's got the look, he's got the promo ability, he's got the fighting, he's got the wrestling, he's got the knockout power. He's everything that what's that guy in Bellator, Aaron Pico, was supposed to be. That's what this guy is. And he's just, I can't, he's just must see TV every time he fights. I saw him live, and it was worth the hype.
And if you have any belief that Cody Brundage could win this fight, he's a +1, at least the odds that I was sent this morning, plus 1,100. So,
well, and on my ROI, he is the pick. But the only reason for that is because Bo Nickel, the odds are always so low that you can't make any money betting on him.
yeah.
So, that's the thing. So it's honestly worth, putting a small bet down at those odds. Like, let's say you normally bet, like I don't know if this might sound bad or good to whoever your perspective. I throw like $50 on like pretty much every UFC fight. So if you normally would throw 50, put like 10 on Cody Brundage, and because you're going to get like $100 back if he wins, and if you lose, well, you only lost $10. Or if you want to bet nickel, you just throw them on a parlay.
It's your money. Why would anybody judge you for
Well,
spending
the thing
your
is
money how
when you're
you see
making
fit?
when you're making that many bets, like most of them are a wash. Like most weeks, I think I bet like a couple weeks ago, it was like I bet 15 bets on the UFC and I made like $40. So it's like, you bet like $750, but you're not losing everyone. There's no
I
way you're losing all the bets.
Look, as
Like,
long as you are not
no, no.
Shohei's translator or former translator, Ipe,
Yeah.
and in the hole for $16 million, then you're fine.
And as long as my wife doesn't watch this show.
All right. So let's actually talk a little bit about Roadhouse. We won't spend. This is not popcorn and pile drivers with me and LaRocca here, but
No,
I'm very intrigued as your thoughts on Conor McGregor's performance in this movie, and his role was way bigger than I actually realized.
yeah, and it's funny because originally this was supposed to be a Ronda Rousey vehicle,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes me wonder like which role she would have had. And I would think like her role would have been more like the Dalton role.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Yeah, like so Connor, like that was, I don't know, maybe it was gonna be somebody else, maybe it was gonna be Connor, like I don't know, but or maybe a female. But yeah, so here's my this is gonna sound weird, but I thought Connor was incredible in his role. Like he was just captivating. You couldn't take your eyes off him, like except for when he was showing his ass.
He showed his ass a lot in this movie, and
He did,
he
yeah.
he did not wear a shirt very often, which
Nope.
made you stare at his odd pecs. He's got like
If
an
I
odd shaped body for someone who does as much
if
juice
I
as
was
he
in that
does.
kind of shape, I would never wear a shirt. But yeah, but he's captivating and you can't watch it. But I would also say the first half of the movie I thought was a much better movie.
Mm-hmm.
When Connor showed up, the movie was ruined. But it was entertaining as hell to watch him, but the movie just completely went off the rails when he showed up. So it's kind of, it sounds like a dichotomy, but like I think I was glad I watched it, and I'm looking forward to see, like, I think especially if you stuck around for the end credits, it's pretty clear there's going to be a sequel, and he's going to be probably the baby face in the sequel.
Oh, you think
So
he's gonna be the baby face?
I do, yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. Yeah, he's kicked ass in this movie.
Okay,
And
so I don't know if he's gonna be the baby face, but it could be one of those things where and here's what I'll compare this movie to, because I thought the violence was so nonsensical that it was
yeah,
over the top, and then I realized, I was like, "Wait a second here. I am a fan of Fast and Furious, and this
yeah.
is a version of that kind of movie." And then I thought, "Okay, wait a second. Let's create a Roadhouse universe,
Mm,
and let's utilize combat sports athletes in some
yeah.
of these roles, because Connor works so well." I don't know who else you could put in there. The Diaz brothers don't look as great without their shirts off as Connor does, but there are some, there's some guy, and the fight scenes will be realistic, and they'll be over the top, and they'll be really athletic, and
Luke Rockhold. I don't know if he can act, but he sure looks the part.
but yeah, and you can even add boxers and
GSP.
wrestlers in
Yeah.
it as well. Like, just
Oh
the
yeah.
idea of, hey, we're gonna do this little wink, wink, nod, nod thing, and we're gonna build this universe around some of these
Rock.
guys. Yeah, like perfect,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
but here's the thing that kind of hurt it, which is because Amazon bought the film, they
Yeah.
bought it exclusively to be shown on their service, and it skipped theaters. And to me, this movie is way better on the big screen than on your television screen. So it's unfortunate that I think it could have actually had some legs on the big screen versus just watching it on the Amazon service. So I was kind of bummed about that. But ultimately, the problem with McGregor, sometimes you can't exactly understand what he says. And
Yeah.
there was a couple, I was like, what did he say? I'm not quite
Yeah.
sure what he said. But his persona was kind of perfect, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, he's an ass kicker. And And yeah, he just like walking through. He's like Jason almost, like you just can't destroy this guy. And and then the other guy, like he's a nice guy and he's a good ass kicker and everything, but he just kind of ran away with his tail between his legs after getting this bar destroyed. Like he failed.
Jake
Like
Gyllenhaal.
yeah. Yeah. It's like, I was shocked at the end. It's like, man,
Okay,
and
but
then Connor
he,
just walks out of the hospital. Like,
he's still the
you
baby
failed, dude.
though,
What?
because he's still the baby face because he stole the money and gave it
Yeah.
to the good people of the town.
Yeah, so they can fix all the damage he caused.
Yeah, that was a part of the movie where they did not seem to care very much, which is
No,
the
it's
the
like
bar gets destroyed over and over and over and over
yeah,
again, and they're like, we're
yeah,
fine.
it's
We'll
like
be fine.
they're like, "Should we open?" And the guy, "There's a boat in our window." And I say, whatever. Just open the bar.
So the bar owner in the movie is a woman who I've started to see a lot of. Her name is Jessica Williams. She was in a couple of TV shows that I watched on Max and Apple TV. She's in Shrinking, which is
Hmm.
really good on Apple TV. And she's like I'm starting to see her in a lot of stuff, and I'm like, she should be in like every single one of these things, as should the woman who Jake Gyllenhaal's character Dalton was sort of romantically involved. Like when you put charismatic and attractive people in these glossy film, like it makes money, and the stunts will have to be even more over the top the next time. But okay, before we go, what did you think of the UFC tie-in to this movie?
Well, the funny thing is I was there when they filmed that scene. That was at last year, the show in March. I can't remember what pay-per-view it was, 287 or something. So I saw it live, and yeah, it was interesting. I remember when I watched it live, I was thinking the rest should have stopped the fight.
Yeah.
And he like Gyllenhaal like put too much damage on that dude. But yeah, it was interesting because the idea that this former champion was now like working, hustling and like basically, trying to make enough money to pay his rent, like every month, and not that long after being UFC champion. Or I don't know, I'm trying, my memory's failing me. I'm not sure if he actually won the title or if he got disqualified or something. Like I'm not exactly sure, but this dude was broke.
Mhm.
And and this came, I watched this, I think it was the same day that settlement came in the fighter lawsuit, and where the fighters took way less money than they should have, and it's like, yeah, that's par for the course. And this dude who is a champion in UFC is, he's got no money, and he's got to take a gig as a, like whatever he was getting paid, $5,000 a month to be a bouncer, basically, which good money for a bouncer. But he's it was kind of sad, and the idea that yeah, in this business that's making multi-billion dollars a year for their TV rights, the fighters are just worker bees that are broke as soon as their career's over.
I would have preferred that there was no UFC tie-in, because I think the flashbacks to his fight career, ultimately there was no payoff, because
No,
we have
no.
no idea why he decided. Like Connor's character gives us a little bit of information, which is, or not Connor, it was the other bad guy who
Yeah,
hired
the
Connor.
first one, the first one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and he was just like, if supposedly you were friends with this guy, and then you're winning the fight, and then you had to land that one last shot, which I'm assuming we believe to be he killed the guy in the cage, or
yeah. So I thought I missed something, but I guess they didn't explain it. Yeah, I
and
mean,
then he never told the audience
was
why
he
he
was
did
he
that.
banned? Did he quit? Like we don't
Right.
know. Yeah,
So if the idea for the movie, which I thought when I was started watching, was, oh, he's actually going to get back in the cage to
that's what
redeem
I thought.
himself,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
that didn't happen. So
yeah.
unless it's just this long lead into the second film, and he actually does get back into the octagon, but I would have preferred the octagon stuff not even be there. I don't know if they decided because Connor was going to be in the movie, or like you said, because Ronda was originally pegged for it. I would have just let's have a different backstory, because the UFC backstory did not make any sense to me.
Yeah, it would have been they could have done the same thing with just having him be like this legendary bar fighter or something like that, like you didn't need UFC. But maybe that's the reason they did that is because UFC was I think they might have been like co-producers or something like
Mhm.
that. So they, maybe it had to be. Yeah, when I saw it, I assumed, I kind of in my head had the storyline that, this was a guy who, like was a bouncer that was such a good fighter that he ended up in UFC, or something like that. Or maybe he was like a former fighter that didn't quite make it to UFC, and then this was like his comeback. But yeah, the movie was nothing like what I imagined it was going to be. And the other thing I would say about this movie, just in general, like I'm not even sure why they called it Roadhouse. The honestly, like all that does is open up comparisons to the original, and this movie was nothing like the original. Like other than the fact that the main character's named Dalton and he was a bouncer. Like I don't really know why they called it Roadhouse. Maybe the movie changed along the way, but I think that a lot of the criticism that this movie's getting wouldn't have that criticism if it was just called something completely different and had nothing to do with the original Roadhouse. That's
I
just me.
think I think I think naming it Roadhouse gets the foot in the door, and some of the audience will be like,
Maybe.
"Oh, I remember Roadhouse from the late '80s,"
But
and
then
they
you're
kept
all
they kept the character. It's not like you said, it's not like, but that movie also, the original Roadhouse, was not really successful. It's just become sort
no.
of a cult classic.
Yeah.
So, this movie probably has already made more money just by Amazon buying it than
Well,
the
and
original
our
Roadhouse.
our friend, Daza, who is a big movie guy, he had a great point. Like with that movie Roadhouse, like you had a movie theater run, then you had like
Mhm.
a videotape run, you had a
VHS.
Blu-ray run,
Yep.
and now you got streaming. So it had all these opportunities to become that cult classic. Whereas this movie, it's on Amazon, you can watch it, and then that's it. Like there's no other way to watch
Yep.
it. So you're gonna
There's
watch it, and
it'll be on Tubi eventually, or
yeah,
one of those
yeah,
services that people just kinda throw on in the background.
probably
And
never.
Netflix may license it at some point from Amazon if Amazon service, yeah, actually, Amazon not gonna be needing cash anytime soon, but I'm sure
Probably
Amazon will make some more money off of it in some way. But yeah, it's not gonna have the shelf life that the original one did.
never be on TV like Roadhouse was,
Probably
so,
not. I mean, how
yeah.
can you put that thing on TV, by the way?
Well, you can, you just, mother fluffer. Yeah, I don't know how Connor, like, I don't think he said 3 words without swearing, but then
Do
again,
you
you can't understand a word he's saying anyways.
Okay. The way that Connor walks generally, because he is like a smaller human, right? He's not like
Yeah,
a giant guy, so he has to puff up his shoulders and he has to always flex his chest to purport, this guy that he is, or he's proven to be in the cage at least. Do you think he walks like around like that in real life?
yeah.
Like when he's
Maybe
like,
not around his house,
well, I was gonna
but
say like when he and the
yeah.
family are like at the park
Eh, maybe at the park, yeah, maybe not in his
in front of
backyard.
other people, he
Yeah,
does.
in front of other people. If there's a camera that's gonna possibly take a picture of him, yeah. My guess is he probably does. I'll be honest, like I've never come across him socially. If you talk to Ryan, I'm sure he probably has at some point, so he could probably answer that better. But I'd put pretty good money on it that he's Conor McGregor 24/7.
So my
Uh,
wife actually heard Connor and Jake Gyllenhaal. I believe they were both on a podcast together. So
okay.
she was like, when she said she heard them on a podcast she listens to, I was like, "Oh, maybe she'll actually watch it then, because there's some intrigue." And
I'm trying to get my wife to watch it. Like this is the kind of movie she would like. So I think she may have already even. I told her like she could probably watch it while she's working out.
Mhm.
It's a great kind of movie for stuff like that. But I agree. Like if it was in the theater, we definitely would have gone. I'd have
Oh,
gone
yeah.
again. I'd have gone again to see it because I think I would like it more if I saw it in the theater.
So her review of Connor, because I just kept mentioning like, "Gosh, this dude just keeps showing his ass." Her review of Connor was, for such like a big and muscular and fighter and this and that, he's kinda got a small ass. That was her
Oh,
review.
okay. Oh, so she watched the movie or she just
Yeah.
watched
No, she
oh,
watched it. She we
oh.
we got to watch it. I told her that I was gonna do the review with you on Friday, so we had to finish it yesterday, but both of us were kinda, she's been sick all week, and I was a little down. I was supposed to go to the office yesterday, but I woke up and I was like, I was kinda out of it, so we just kinda sat on the couch and
So that
watched
was your
the rest of the
second time
movie.
watching?
No, this is the only time I watched it was
Oh,
yesterday.
okay, okay.
Yeah,
Oh, wow, okay.
yeah,
I didn't realize that.
yeah,
Yeah, so yeah, it's, yeah, and I watched, Creed 3 today, so there you go.
yeah. There you go. All
Yeah,
right. Okay. Thank you for doing this. I'm
no
glad
problem.
we,
My pleasure.
without in the clinch, we're lacking the MMA stuff. So I was like, oh, we gotta do something for UFC 300. And yeah, hope everyone who's interested gets the show, and I hope it's a good show. I'm gonna try and watch some of the prelim stuff, but we're gonna be traveling pretty much all day, so I have no idea when we get to our stopping point. Like, am I even gonna be able to watch it? Like, may have to watch it on my phone, probably through ESPN
Yeah.
Plus. So, all right. Thanks to Paul Fontaine, who he's been putting a new show up on our YouTube channel called The Joy of Wrestling. And
Yep,
you've done 2 shows so
yep,
far, one with Kevin Ely and one with Jeremy Feinstone. So
yep.
those are up
Got
on
my
the
3rd
YouTube
guest booked
channel.
already. Got my 3rd guest
Who's that
booked.
gonna be?
Daza Wadsworth, the aforementioned Daza.
Okay.
We're gonna have him on, this coming Monday. I time to be determined, but we're definitely doing the show, so.
So we are running them as live streams, and we try to put them up at least a day before. So you can check out the Fight Game Media YouTube channel if you want to check that out. But just give the quick 10-second synopsis of what the show's about.
Basically, I have a guest on that describes something in their wrestling fandom that made them happy, either a show, angle, a moment. Um, and yeah, we've had 2 completely different but both great shows in my opinion so far.
In 10 years, if you're still doing this show, I don't believe someone's going to answer with the backstage footage from All In.
You know what? If I get Matt B on,
Yeah, Matt is trying very hard to stick up for
yeah,
that segment.
yeah,
He's a good trooper.
stand up for AW.
Tony should sign him up to give him something because
Hey,
he's doing a good job. All
he
right.
is.
So for Paul, I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.